I think it's important to echo the words of Commissioner York. When you have a sustained weather event, there are a number of factors that make it a 1 in 50-year event, and it's just frankly the amount of rain over a sustained period which we haven't seen for half a century. And that is important to put in context. We know the rainfall we're likely to receive in the next few days is beyond anyone's expectation, and that's why our first and foremost priority is to make sure people who are in potential evacuation zones know that they have a plan, so that if they are asked to evacuate, they do it quickly. That is our absolute priority. It could be around 4,000 people around the Nepean Hawkesbury Valley and Western Sydney that are directly impacted, and the next few days is very critical for us in that regard. But again, we can't take our eye off the mid and north coast regions, the Hunter regions that have had sustained rainfall and will continue to have sustained rainfall. I understand there'll be some relief on Wednesday on the weather forecast with, again, some rain on Thursday. And of course, that extra front that's coming through northern New South Wales, which will hit inland New South Wales, is also a concern. So we can't underestimate the ferocity of the extreme weather conditions. We've gone from extreme drought, extreme bushfire to now extreme flood. And we have to put that in context. And our first and foremost priority is to make sure people know they could be in danger and make sure they've got their plans ready so they're not caught unawares. And from speaking to the SES yesterday and today, if you are subject to an evacuation order, the aim is to try and make it in daylight hours where it's safer. So we are asking people just to plan ahead, to have those essential things they'd need to take with them ready, and also potentially have a safe place to go with relatives or friends in the first instance. But failing that, we'll of course make sure that we accommodate people in our evacuation centres, and I assume there'll be more evacuation centres on top of the 13 we already have.
Minister Elliott,
can I just ask, when you talk about a 1 in 50-year event, are you saying statewide or just in the Nepean?
Just in the Nepean region. So, for example, in some parts of the state, it's a 1 in 5 or 1 in 10-year event. In parts of the Northern Rivers area and the Hastings area, it's actually a 1 in 100-year event. So it's not a statewide average. Different parts of the state have been impacted more than others. And what it looks like to be in the Nepean Hawkesbury Valley is a 1 in 50-year event, so going back to the 1960s. So parts of the Hastings community in particular are experiencing a 1 in 100-year event. And that is something we have to put into context. Other parts of the state less severe, but we have to assume the worst in terms of the next few days in the Nepean Hawkesbury Valley, and the rivers in that catchment are just boiling over, and we have to assume that will be a 1 in 50-year event, and that will materialise in the next few days. We're just warning everybody now so they're not caught unawares. We're warning everybody now so that they don't assume it's something similar to what they experienced last year or 5 years ago. A lot of people who will be asked to evacuate have been through it before, but many people who will be asked to evacuate wouldn't have been through that before because they wouldn't have been in the same household for half a century. And that's why we need to put this into context and really ask people to follow the advice and to be ready for the worst possible scenario.
Just on the dam issue again, would it have helped to release water from the dam from Vents Village? And your view, and have you received any advice or indication on how much water would have needed?
Yeah, well, I received advice that some water has been released in the last month. So water has been released in the last month. But given the rainfall that we're experiencing in the next few days, you would have had to have reduced the capacity of the dam to around 20 or 25%, which just wouldn't have been feasible. I mean, that puts into context how much rain we're expecting to get over the next few days. It is a 1.5 century event. And it's not just, you have to look beyond just the dam, it's all the rivers that are overflowing, it's the sustained rainfall in very short periods of time that's been bucketing down. And again, the fact that it's a front that's not moving, it's kind of locked in there for a few days, which again, we've not seen for half a century. So all of that has to be put into context. And that's why it's really important for us, first and foremost, to make sure people know they may need to leave their homes, to be ready for that, and to please take the advice as soon as you get that advice, because we don't want to see any lives lost. The one saving grace in the last few days has been that we don't know of anyone who's lost their lives, and let's keep it that way. Our first and foremost priority is to save lives, save as many properties as possible, but also to give people enough warning of what's occurring. And I appreciate in parts of the mid and north coast regions which are experiencing the 1 in 100 year event, there's been sustained damage to infrastructure, there's been sustained damage to how people communicate and move around. And I just want to say to everybody in New South Wales who's experiencing that fear and that anxiety that our thoughts are with you, and we'll get assistance to you as soon as we can. But obviously that is limited to in our ability when the rain continues to fall, making sure we have enough flood rescue technicians, which is why we're grateful that 3 other states have supported us in that regard. Ordinarily, a state might deal with one localised flood issue. We're dealing with several, dozens in fact. If you count suburbs or local government areas, you're talking dozens and dozens of regions where you have to put that focus. It is a major operation, the likes of which, again, we've not seen for a long time. And the breadth and width of this will continue to grow, and that's why it's really important for us to get the message out about people being on high alert, being ready to evacuate when they need to, and already through the SES, our government agencies, and especially Resilience New South Wales, we are forward planning what the next few days and what the recovery will look like.